What's a
Sir,
contract?
contract is like a binding between sir the consumer and
Okay. Essentially, it's an
sir.
agreement between two parties. Okay, what you're saying is absolutely right.
Sir,
Okay, so yeah, I'm not going to go
yes,
into.
sir.
Uh, yeah, so we'll not worry about whether it is. It's essentially between two parties. That's the main thing. So the parties are having certain what you call as things which they have to look at before they are actually going to be able to enter into a contract. So we will be going through these aspects today. And today, if you look at contracts in India, we are going to go by the Contracts Indian Contracts Act 1872. Now, you may feel that it's a very old act, but what has happened is there's been a lot of what you call as modifications which have been done. They have been making it relevant for what you call as the today's circumstance. So that by way of having amendments, they have some amendments which have abolished certain things, which have what you call as brought in new things. For example, technology like what we have, the information technology was not there, so the contract act has got those things also brought in. Like for example, we call them as technology contracts, and it becomes relevant in today's context. Okay, now when we talk about contracts, there are two kinds of contracts. There's a formal contract and an informal contract. Okay, we should remember always that contract can be even verbal. So this is something we spoke about. However, when you are having a verbal contract, try to have some witnesses. Like you can have it in a public place where two or three people could have heard you say or agree on to certain things. This means in the unlikely event, like if you're a very good friend only, like you don't go in for a very formal agreement. So in the event that something seems to go wrong also, you still have some fallback. Okay, so when you say informal contract, it could be like where I say that today I will attend, like usually it's within family members and things like that. I'm going to attend a birthday party. I'm going to tell my son, look, today I will definitely take you on a bike ride. So if you may break this, but nothing is going to really happen. So these are kind of informal contracts. Formal contracts are more binding, and they have certain things to look into. So a contract is an agreement, which means two people should be able to say, yes, I am certain I am going to do something. So we are going to essentially agree to do something or to refrain from doing or whatever. And there should be also something called the enforceability. Okay, so you cannot take anything with illegal intent. That means the rule of the law is still going to be honored. You cannot take a criminal activity and say that, okay, because there was an agreement to do something with criminal intent, it is still going to be enforceable. No, that's not the way contracts unfortunately work. So whenever you are going to what you call as have a contract, there are a few aspects. The first and the most important thing is agreement. There should be absolute agreement between the two parties. So it means that there should not be any gray areas in theory, but in practice, it is not always possible. Always the client is the boss. Always the client is the boss. In other words, if a client decides to change something, usually the owner, the person who's paying you your salary, okay, so even sometimes employment comes as a contract, and you find that you're in a bind because unless the owner is definitely not doing what is right. However, how are you going to go and fight him out? He's still signing a paycheck, right? So you will be very cautious under certain things, but still, to be a legal a contract, there should be 100% agreement on terms and conditions. How many of you have seen terms and conditions, especially in a bill? I'll tell you,
Well,
goods once sold.
yes, sir.
Yes, what is it?
Cannot be taken back.
Or exchanged. Okay, then anything else that comes in it? All payments should be made within
The stipulated time.
stipulated time. All disputes will be
Faced in that so and so court.
so and so forth. Excellent. See, guys, the main thing is that all of you have seen all of this, However, we need to wind and rust up you have to just oil some of the rusted parts. So I just want to tell you that in so many of the things, you do a terms and condition, and you'll find that you'll always sign on the dotted line, right? So maybe whenever you would have seen like in a bill, or maybe you're sending a courier or something, you'll find that there is a lot of terms and conditions in fine print. Essentially, the you are expected to read all of that and then sign it. So how many of you have signed a software contract? Anybody here has signed a software contract? So I don't know how many of you use StatPro in your BTech project or any other software. So when you install the software, what do? You'll see that there's a lot of terms and conditions. In essence, of course, it's like a forced thing, right? If you don't agree, it doesn't allow you to go further. And by clicking the box, what do? Who's after Mohammed? Mrinal Satish. Mrinal Satish?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, have you signed a box like that?
I think downloading or installing the software.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, when you signed up for your Google account, do you have a Gmail?
Like not signed, not like a signed up, just there with the checkbox, like
Yes,
you
yes,
have
yes.
to click on that.
Yes.
And,
So you will find, have you signed up for Gmail?
not like that, but for installing software, I'm not signed up for the Gmail account.
Okay. Let me just go to Mufasil Haq. Mufasil Haq, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Which is which software probably cost a storm in a teacup of late?
Sorry, sir.
There was a software which we used to use a lot, where they, because of some change, they cost a lot of what do you call uproar. So
I don't know, sir.
WhatsApp.
WhatsApp, sir. WhatsApp.
Yeah, what did WhatsApp do? It changed some conditions and said, if you don't agree beyond this time, you're all going to be in big trouble. Maybe it didn't use those words, but I felt that I was in big trouble, so I came out of WhatsApp. Like, I use WhatsApp, but it's not my favorite. So this is what, like all of us are doing many times without understanding. Okay. But in all fairness, you have to what you call as understand before you accept the terms and conditions when there is a agreement between the two, because WhatsApp is agreeing you to use its services because you do certain things. This is going to be extended also to all your contracts, right? So in a contract, especially in the civil engineering side or our construction contracts, you'll find that it's a little bit easier to understand, because there is a starting point, there's an ending point. Each brick is a brick, cement is cement, and so on and so forth. A quality statement is a quality statement. So we try and agree to a lot of things before we enter into a contract, right? Now, moving forward, you should be competent to contract. What does this mean? A person cannot enter into an agreement unless they are they've attained the age of majority. What is the age of majority in India? Let's see, Naveen Kumar. Yes, Naveen
Yes,
Kumar.
sir.
What's the age of majority in India?
Not sure, sir.
Not sure. How come?
Teenagers.
Experience.
Huh? Sorry?
Sir, 18.
18. Yes, very good. So anybody who's a minor cannot enter into a contract. If they have to enter into a contract, they should have some guardian who essentially will be the person who will kind of help them to get into the contract. Okay, so you cannot enter into a contract just like that. Basically, that's what it means. Okay, so I think I got Naveen Kumar. So next person will be, of course, Naveen Natarajan. Anyway, coming back here, you cannot enter into a contract when you are not in a sound mind. Maybe if you are intoxicated with liquor, or you are under the influence of medicines that doesn't allow you to think, or they use very strong word like lunatic, and stuff like that. If they are not deemed to be competent to take a clear-headed decision, that means the contract is not valid. Okay, so otherwise, if you say, look, I'm going to give you 1 crore, and the other person also agrees, right, that okay, I'll receive from you 1 crore, it is essentially a contract. It is essentially a contract. Whether you I mean, like, you cannot say many things lightly. That's the very important thing. Like, people could take you to court literally. Okay, whether you're going to win, lose, how long, how much you're going to spend, all that is a very big, what you call as a question mark. But if suppose you are going to have an agreement, even a verbal agreement, it's going to be binding in a court of law, right? So again, the other thing is there should be a lawful intent. If you know that something is not allowed and you go and still do it, that means it is not then it can become a criminal case. So it is not going to be considered as a contract. So there should be a lawful intent. So you can you can just think about so many other things where it is not having, like when I say it, the intent with which they are going to do the contracting, it might not have what we call as a lawful intent. So those things you have to be a little cautious upon. And the other important thing is there should be free consent. It means that nobody should have something which forces the other party to agree onto other thing. So this is something which is again like a very gray area. Nobody is going to tell that this person is having some hold on me, and so I am going to enter into an agreement. So that is why like you have to be very, what you call as very cautious, especially when you are entering into an agreement. Nobody should come and say, "Arey, I had taken a loan of 10 crores from John, and John said you have to do this contract, otherwise I'm going to get the money immediately from you." So what I'm doing, I'm using my hold which I'm having over you to get something done. So this means the person, maybe you, entering into a contract with me or a third party, is not able to do it with free consent, right? There's a threat on your head. If you take this contract, then only I will give you some other contract. So you see, because that person is nicely linking 2 or 3 things, the free consent is lost. So free consent is a very important thing when you're looking at a contract. Okay, now moving on, these are the stages of a contract. Okay, these are the stages of a contract. First, there is a proposal. Somebody makes a proposal. I want a house constructed. Then somebody promises to do it, and then again there should be free will in doing this when the agreement is reached. When the agreement is reached, then you get a contract. Okay, so this is probably the steps. So I would like you to just go and look at the definitions of each of these words in the Indian Contract Act. It gives you more, like you don't have to have a third, what you call as a filtered and all such things. And Indian Contract Act, 1872, you can download freely. Now, these are the agents in a contract. These are the players in a contract. Let me put it in that way. So if you want to know who are the players, these are the players in the contract. So there is a proposer, somebody who proposes that they will do the work. They give this to the proposee. Okay, and then they can have some negotiation. And when you make an proposal, it should be definite. It should be very clear. What is going to be done? How is it going to be done? When is it going to be done? Everything is going to be done very clearly, right? So there should not be any ambiguity. Okay, so now many times we'll have some ambiguous words. What can be the ambiguous words? You can say that I am going to use bricks. Now, bricks can have many qualities. You will think that a brick is going to have certain make is going to be used. Another person is going to think another kind is going to be used. You may think of using blocks. Now you can have the ACC, the Aerocon blocks. You can have the hollow core blocks, or you can have some other mud block also. So now what happens? There is ambiguity on what is going to be constituted as block. This was the cause of dispute very often in the earlier days, before clear specifications were available. Even 20 years ago, contractors used to make a lot of money, because when they submitted the agreement, they have comfortably or conveniently chosen or accidentally omitted certain aspects, and afterwards then the ambiguity comes, and when the wordings are being interpreted, it will be in the favor of the contractor. So now owners have become very, very careful. You cannot easily cheat the majority of the government agencies. Okay, so they look for very definite, very clear, crisp, certain words. It means we have to learn how to use English properly. Okay, and we will also try to probably look into those things, see how we can build our language. And although it is expected that all of you are very good in technical English, even I find that my language is not to the mark. Writing sentences, putting paragraphs together, still a challenge. Especially since we are non-native speakers, we need to take the effort to make good sentences. All right. So moving on, let's look at this. A proposal plus, proposal or offer, when it is combined with an acceptance. You make a proposal, it has to be accepted, and then we get a agreement. So there are certain stages. Somebody proposes, somebody accepts it, and then only there is an agreement. What is agreed upon? Typically, you do a work, I will pay you some money, I'll give you some concession. See, for example, the toll roads, I think you had a paper, boot, bought, and other things. So what happens, you do this work, you will be allowed to collect toll for the next 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, something like that. And there are certain conditions, some terms and conditions, some star, double star, and other things which are also there. Okay, right. Sorry. Now moving on, there is a person who, there are two parties. Somebody has to accept and somebody has to be a proposal. So they give a proposal and somebody has to accept. And when this is done, then we have a contract. Only then we have a contract. Okay, we'll just take a 2-minute break. And do you have any questions in what we have said till now, what we have discussed till now? Any questions, please? Right. Now, the dangerous part is if you don't ask questions, then I will start to ask questions. Okay. So, I really wish that, some of you or one of you will ask something, like something which is bothering you. Any questions, please?
Sir?
Yes, please.
Sir, how to include that price variation in the contract, sir?
Right. See, this is where the wording of the contract is very important. You have brought out a very nice point. The point is only under certain what you call as within certain frameworks, certain works can be done. Recently, there was a in Uttarakhand there was a disaster. What was the disaster in Uttarakhand? Anybody?
Glacier.
Yes.
Glacier.
Yes.
The dam.
Yes. Now, anybody knows who was the contractor? Sorry? Okay, HCC was the contractor.
HCC.
Okay, now look at this. Was it HCC's fault that the glacier collapsed and caused the dam to collapse?
No, sir.
Yeah. So this is what we call as an act of God. If there is something like an act of God, that means the contract will not be valid. And in the same way, if there is a war in the when we were younger, when I was in 5th or something, there was something called the Gulf War. US and Iraq had a war. At the time, you can imagine what would have happened to the petrol prices. Is it the fault of the contractor that all the things are escalating, or today the tax system is changing and you're going to pay 4 rupees or 2 rupees or 4 rupees as increase in the cost of your petrol to the liter, right? And this is going to also have an escalating variation. So what we will do is we will specify, if suppose say for example you take the US dollar, if this pricing is valid when US dollar is between such and such values, when the price of oil is between such and such values. If suppose there is something like the pandemic, suppose there is a flood, okay, where the work is not, you cannot really do the work. See, for example, in Delhi you usually have heat waves. If you are not taking into account the number of days lost at the beginning of the contract, or you say for example if you go to the Gulf, they have a certain temperature beyond which when it goes all work has to mandatorily stop. So do we have the temperature in our control? So you will take a list of all of these things and put them as variation. So these variation clauses, when they are met, there will be a renegotiation of price. Okay, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. And if you have any other, I think it was Satyam Jain. Thank you, Satyam Jain. And any other person over here has a question, I'll be happy to take it, or you can have your question in mind, and when we come back to, like at the end of the lecture also you can ask that. Okay. Now, what is the constituent of an acceptance? Acceptance should be absolute. You cannot, and it should not be it should be unqualified. It means I will not say provided this is there, I will accept. Okay. Suppose you go to we were doing a work on a ash pond. We cannot say that you have to do this before we take the ash pond, unless like it is something like, for example, the owner has to take the permission from the government. Okay, that's not in the hands of the contractor. So those kind of things probably you can put it as either exclusion or some preconditions for your agreement. But if you are saying that I will do the work provided this is done, right, that means after that there should not be any other what you call as questions. That's a very important thing in a contract. So whenever you are accepting, you cannot accept piecemeal. I'll accept this part of the contract, but that part of the agreement I will not do. So that is not going to work. So that means you will have to draft a contract in such a manner that all of those things are already excluded, and whatever you are saying you're going to do, you are absolutely going to do. Okay, and it should be properly communicated. So typically we have contract documents. You'll find that every page has to be signed by the parties. All the persons who are involved in the contract, they have to sign. Then only it is becoming a valid document, right? And it should be in the acceptable form. So we will be probably going to the forms of contract a little later. So you have the FIDIC form and JCTE and other kinds of forms. We will go into those forms of contract a little later. But in any case, we should remember that there is something called the form of contract. Okay, and if you see, many times the offer will be valid only for certain days. See, for example, you go to buy a flat, they'll say this offer is valid for 45 days. If you take a quotation for a motorcycle, they say this quotation is valid for a certain number of days. It's not there for ever, right? So you need to be very cautious. Like whenever you are giving whenever you are trying to enter into a contract, it should be all done in a timely manner. There is a time bound, because beyond that it may become even useless. Okay, and these are the typical contents of a contract. Guys, I'll just take this call, if you please. Right, so these are the forms of contract. Guys, I hope you're able to see the screen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Sir.
Okay, so what actually happens is, you'll find that the contents of a contract is made of these major parts, right? So there is the form of contract. So like I told you, we will discuss the forms of contract a little in detail. It's nothing but what are the things that make up the contract. So that's only the form of contract. Then you'll have the general conditions of contract. You'll have some specifications, bill of quantities, and because all of these things, you should know how much work is going to be done also, right? Then you will also have the contract, what you call as the contract drawings. You'll have the probably the layout of the place where you're going to do the work. Some what you call as preliminary drawings in a EPC project. Typically, some preliminary drawings are given, and you will develop on those drawings. And then maybe you will have a because there are a lot of types of contracts, unit rate contracts, so on and so forth. So all of these things have to be based on some drawings and for the people to work on, because when I say 1000 meter cube of concrete, this 1000 meter cube is not going to be on the ground floor alone, right? It could be, suppose it's a 10-story building, the first floor the basement and the first floor might have consumed 300 meter cube of concrete, and the rest of the concrete is split up over the various levels. It means that although the 1000 meter cube is there, the cost of like putting the concrete at different heights is going to be different. So this is something the contractor has to know. So this is where the drawings play a very important part. And then there's the tender. So the tender is what the owners typically throw out to the contractors. So this forms the basis of understanding of what is the requirement of the owner. The contractors work on it. They'll give the tender will have some what you call as fixed formats. You will submit it in that format to the owner, and when they accept your offer, right, then you enter into a contract. So this is about contracting. And if you have any questions, yes, I'm willing. This is a good time to ask it. Thank you. So I mean, like, yes, let's just go to the right. The other slide is the thank you slide. Something is happening, it's not going. Yeah, but anyway, I think it's still fine. I mean, let's not worry about it. Please, yeah, this is the time when you can ask me questions, please.